Well, ladies and gentlemen, the patch notes for the upcoming Scalebreaker update have been released, and they've actually been released 2 days early. And that's because they were leaked by somebody, I don't know who, but somebody on the inside actually leaked the patch notes. And they did say that whoever leaked the notes is no longer part of the programs or the community. So there you go, man. And introduced to the legal department. So yeah, I guess if you get access to these notes that are under NDA, don't leak them. I guess that's the lesson to be learned here. But anyway, ZeniMax's response to this whole debacle I thought was absolutely brilliant. They just put out the patch notes early. Now, there are a lot of changes with this new patch, so I'm actually going to break down these patch notes into 3 separate sections for you guys, and this section here is going to be going over all of the new introduced sets this patch, as well as the old sets that have been changed, and there is a lot here. So the first new set that we have here is the Hollow Fang Thirst, and this is a light armor set, spell crit, max mag spell crit. When you critically heal or critically damage a target, you spawn a ball of hemoglobin at their location. After 2 seconds, it explodes, restoring 3,470 magicka and applying minor vitality to you and your allies within 6 meters for 9 seconds. And this is on a 9-second cooldown. So 8% healing and 3,470 magicka. So a pretty decent amount of sustain as well. This is going to be a good set for a PvE healer. For PvP, because it's a stationary ball, I don't think this is going to be the best set, but nonetheless, looking to be an interesting set between sustain and healing power. The next set we've got is the Drozakar's Claws. Very simple set. We get physical penetration, weapon crit, stam recovery. For every bleed effect we have on an enemy, we increase our weapon damage by 200 against them. This looks like it's going to be a very strong set. Now, there aren't a ton of bleeds in the game, but if you have a bunch of bleeds, you could easily push 600 to 800 weapon damage. Yeah, this could be a good set, but it requires you to run very specific weapon sets and very specific abilities in order for it to work. I can see this working very well for pretty much any class, actually, because no class has a bleed in its class kit. All the class kits are different elemental stamina damage or physical damage, but nonetheless, I think this will be a very strong set if you use it with the right getup. Be interesting to see how this guy plays out. The next set we have is Reynald's Resolve, and this is a heavy armor set. It adds max health, healing taken, max health, and when we deal direct damage, we gain a stack of Resolve for 10 seconds. Each stack gives us 1% healing and 420 physical and spell resist, and we can get up to 8 stacks. Now, I'm not sure how long. Oh, it lasts for 10 seconds. Okay, so it'll last for 10 seconds. This is going to be a good tank set, I think. I mean, it'll be really easy to do direct damage. You literally just light attack and you'll be building those stacks, plus whatever else you're doing on top of it. The big thing I want to note is that these buffs that this set gives you are not part of other buffs in the game. So this will stack with our other buffs that we have via our armor, etc. And it will stack with things like the minor healing buff as well. So really nice there. Now, the monster set from the new dungeon here is going to give us weapon crit, spell crit in the one piece. Really nice to get that one piece with both crits. And then number 2, when we deal critical damage, we restore 1,000 magicka or stamina, whichever one is higher, and we also gain 500 of the other resource. And this is on a 5-second cooldown. Now, this is quite a bit of regen, to be honest. So if you're landing crits fairly often, this is going to be the equivalent of 400 of your main resource recovery and 200 of your off resource recovery. So you get a lot of sustain from this set here, and it'd be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. We've got a lot of monster sustain sets coming in these past few patches, so we'll see how this kind of compares to the other ones. Now, the next set that we've got is in the Lair of Masel Rock, one of the new dungeons. The light armor set is the Zen's Red Dress. We've got 129 mag recovery, 129 spell damage, maximum magicka. Our light attacks will apply an Eye of Zen on enemies for 20 seconds. Enemies with the Eye on Zen take 2% additional more damage for each damage over time effect we have placed on them, up to 10%. This is really cool. Magicka builds don't really have a lot of good options for damage over time sets, so I really like that they are adding a damage over time magicka set here, and this is going to be like a 10% damage bonus essentially for slotting this set. It'll make all your dots hit harder, and it's just about applying more dots in order to get more damage out of them. So I really like this. I really am interested in playing some more magicka dot builds, and I think sets like this will go well with that. Azure Blight Reaper, this is the medium set. We get weapon crit, max stam, and stam recovery. When we deal damage with the damage over time effect, we apply a stack of Blight Seed to the target for 5 seconds. At 20 stacks, it explodes, dealing 11k disease damage. And if an enemy already has 20 stacks, they cannot be infected with a new Blight Seed for 2 seconds. This is interesting. So this will apply the stack every time we deal damage with the damage over time effect. So if you put 3 dots on the opponent, they will very quickly build a lot of stacks of this. So interesting set here for the medium armor. I will have to try this on the PTS to see how this works practically, but from what I see here, this could potentially be a very strong dot set. Now, the next set that we have is the Dragon's Defilement, the heavy armor set. We get max stam, max health. When we take damage from a melee attack, we gain Corrupting Aura for 5 seconds that applies Minor Fracture and Minor Breach to all enemies near you, lowering their physical and spell resist by 1320. This is an interesting set. I honestly don't think it's very good. The minor debuffs are rarer, as in not a lot of people run them. However, they're not very strong. This isn't a huge amount of damage increase by putting this debuff on your opponent, and this is a heavy armor set, so I imagine this is kind of from a tank's perspective to debuff the opponent. Yeah, I think there are better sets for debuffing than this one out there, unless you're really missing that Minor Fracture, Minor Breach. I don't think this is the best set. Now, moving on to the next one, we've got the Marsalok. We get max stam on the 1-piece, and then on the 2-piece, when we bash an enemy, we spew a Cone of Corruption, dealing 8k disease damage to enemies in front of us. The damage is increased by 5% for each negative effect the enemy has, and this is on a 7-second cooldown. So the first thing I want to say is that this is on bash. So this is actually a proc set that you will easily be able to control the proc of, meaning that in PvP, this will be a great set for a burst build, which in first glance, you might not think that, but because it adds the extra damage at the end of your bash, you can just add a huge combo by putting the bash in at the end of whatever else you're doing. So that's the first thing I'm noticing, is this is going to be really good for burst builds. And then the second thing is the damage is increased by 5% for each negative effect, up to 150% additional damage. Now, a build that puts out a lot of negative effect maybe puts out 15 to 20. So I don't think you will realistically get up to that 150% bonus, but you never know, man. I mean, 30 negative effects, that's what it would take to get there. But yeah, very interesting set. I think this one will probably see some adjustment during its course on the live server. Probably not prior to the live server, but yeah, this is going to be a very strong proc set because it's so reliable and easy to control. And of course, there have been some updates to some existing, less popular item sets. So the first one is the Phoenix set. It's now going to, when we drop below 25% health, give us a damage shield that absorbs 10k damage for 6 seconds and deal 12.5k flame damage to nearby enemies on a 1-minute cooldown. So this is very akin to the White Strake set, which is a crafted set that not a lot of people use anymore, but is a little bit more popular during the beginning couple years of this game. And yeah, honestly, man, the old Phoenix set seems a lot better. I'll say that. But the old Phoenix set was kind of OP, to be honest, because it just prevented you from dying, essentially giving you a free life if you got killed. So this one just goes a different route, still kind of giving you the same thing. If you're going to die, it saves you, but it's not the same extreme. Now, the way of martial knowledge has also been changed to when we're below 75% stam, our light attacks cause the enemy to take 10% additional damage for 4 seconds, and this is on a 6-second cooldown. This is going to be a good set. Yeah, this is going to be a really good set. So old martial knowledge was not the best, to be honest. It didn't really up your outgoing damage very much at all, but a 10% additional damage buff. Just for 6 seconds, your opponent will take 10% additional damage. That is huge, man. That's a huge amount of damage. Not to mention, you can backbar this set. You could just have a martial knowledge resto staff, give them the poke with the resto, switch to your front bar, and mess them up with your willpower staff. Like, you can really do some serious damage with this change set here. So this is something I will definitely be playing around with on the PTS. Now, the next set that we have is Elemental Succession, and its new change is going to be when we deal flame, shock, or frost damage, we gain 500 spell damage for that element for 4 seconds on an 8-second cooldown, but we can have multiple buffs up for each element simultaneously. I like this. The old Elemental Succession set was pretty bad, very hard to take advantage of effectively. This essentially just takes the original set and make it a little bit easier to use. So I like that for sure, but the only issue I have with it is that the only way this will be a good set is if you actually have a very dual elemental build. So if you're using a lot of frost and a lot of fire attacks and maybe even a little bit of shock, this could potentially be a really good set, but outside of that very rare build, it's not going to be a very good set. Now, moving on to Overwhelming Surge, this has also been changed a little bit. It's going to proc 33% of the time now when we use a class ability, so it procs more often, and it'll deal 1k shock damage to all enemies within 12 meters of you every 1 second for 6 seconds. 15% of the damage we deal this way is restored as Magicka, and this is on a 6-second cooldown. So big change from the previous iteration of this set. The damage is almost halved from where it was, but now it restores Magicka as well. Overwhelming Surge was actually pretty strong in PvP. So I do like this change. It was kind of a really strong like dueling set. So we'll see how this kind of plays out now. Trinimac's Valor has also been changed. When we cast a damage shield ability, we call down a fragment of Trinimac that heals you and your allies for 4k health and damages enemies for 4k magic damage in a 5-meter radius on a 5-second cooldown. I like this a lot. The old Trinimac's Valor set essentially only worked when you procced a damage shield on an ally. This will now work when you use it on yourself. So it actually adds some viability to this set. 4k magic damage, 4k heal. We'll see what people can do with this. Now, moving on to the medium sets that have been changed, Sensei's Bite has also got some big changes, and I am very excited for this. It got pretty much the same treatment that Martial Knowledge did. When you use Roll Dodge, increase your crit damage by 12%. We can backbar this, 12% critical damage for 8 seconds. So the old duration was actually 5 seconds, and it was just a bit of weapon damage and weapon crit. This is way more damage than old Sensei. This is going to be really good. And like I said, you can backbar this, just allowing you to put something else on your front bar for even more damage. Really, really nice change to the Sensei set. The Kaine's Kiss has also been changed so that when you deal direct damage while 12 meters or further from your target, you have a 15% chance to heal for 1,000 health and restore 1,000 stamina. Previously, this set did that, but pretty much only with bow attacks or abilities. So now it works with any ranged attacks and abilities, just kind of opening up the viability of this set. And now it's a little bit weaker than it used to be as well, but it has a higher chance to proc. Now, the Elemental Warrior, the heavy set here, has also had a change. You drop below 25% health, you heal for 1,250 health, and gain 100 ultimate on a 1-minute cooldown. Kind of like the Phoenix set, except a little bit different approach. We don't deal the flame damage, we gain the ultimate instead. Now, the Immortal Warrior has also been changed. While your health is below 35%, you gain major protection, reducing the damage you take by 30%. Very cool change to this set. This is very interesting because something like a Vampire running Immortal Warrior and maybe even the Pariah set, yeah, man, that would be a very cool build. Now, moving on to the next set here, we've got the 7th Legion Brute. This has also been adjusted this patch. Now, when we cast an ability that increases our physical or spell resist, we gain 350 weapon damage and 350 health recovery for 10 seconds on a 10-second cooldown. So, pretty much a nerf to the 7th Legion set, I think. It used to be when you take damage, you gain the 500 weapon damage and you heal for some health. I think the healing power on this new set will be a little bit better, but the damage bonus you get will be worse. And yeah, a big thing that heavy armor has is you can have really good damage and healing. So a little bit of a chink out of heavy armor's armor there. So a little bit of a cut into the armor there. Now, Armor of Veiled Inheritance has also been changed so that when you interrupt an enemy, you gain 500 weapon damage for 5 seconds. It used to be just when you attack, you have a 10% chance to gain the weapon damage. I like this change because interrupt is something that, well, not a lot of people use really effectively, but when it is used effectively, it is very, very strong. So, cool stuff there. The Ravager has also had some really big changes. It functions completely differently now. Each time we attempt to reduce the target's physical or spell resistance, we gain a stack of Ravager for 5 seconds, giving us 125 weapon damage. You can gain a stack every 1 second, and at 4 stacks, the duration doubles, but cannot be refreshed. So essentially a big nerf to Ravager here. It's going to give you less maximum weapon damage than it used to, a maximum of 500 weapon damage. However, the duration on it should be a lot easier to proc, regardless of what sets you're running, as long as you have that armor debuff. Now, my big question for this set is, do you have to use different armor debuffs in order to proc this, or can you use the same armor debuff over and over and just spam it to get those maximum Ravager procs? If so, something like spamming Pierce Armor on Sword and Board would actually be a viable option for Ravager. So that's something I'll have to get on the PTS to test myself. Alright, so there have also been quite a few fixes and changes to some other sets as well. Defensive Position and Perfected Defensive Position, One Hand and Shield set here is going to restore 20% less Magicka if you fail to reflect the projectile. Ebon Armory has been nerfed. It now provides only 1,000 max health from 1,118. Eternal Hunt had a fix so that when you weapon swap, the rune would not disappear. Keem Jas, the Major Berserk, now lasts for 5 seconds after a kill, up from 3 seconds, but it only works on enemies who you are actively in combat with. Ice Furnace now grants spell damage on the 4-piece rather than weapon damage. This is probably a good call because this is a Magicka-based set. The Merciless Charge, so this is going to be the Maelstrom weapon, I believe. Increase the amount of ticks for this weapon by 1, resulting in a 20% damage increase, and the effect can trigger off of each tick of the Stampede's area of effect, so very interesting change to that as well. Pillar of Nirn has had an increase of bleed damage by 25%, resulting in a 20% increased damage for the entire set. Plague Doctor now only gives 3,000 maximum health, down from 4,000, since it has no additional requirements to justify that huge stat increase. Stinging Slashes has had an increase in the bonus damage to 1,600 per tick, up from 1,350. This is a big buff to the dual wield master set here. However, bleeds are now affected by physical penetration, so the increase in damage here could be to make up for the change to bleeds there, and you guys will see that in our next episode that I'll upload later today. Toryg's Pact will no longer increase the damage of Oblivion enchantments. Now, I haven't gone over this yet, but they have changed how Oblivion enchants work, so they're now a portion of your max health as opposed to a set value. So that makes sense, but it still decreases the cooldown. Twin Sisters, they increase the damage over time from this set by 67%, but the dot now happens over 10 seconds instead of 8. So a bit of a damage increase, a bit of a duration increase. I really like this because Twin Sisters was pretty lackluster of a set. And then Warrior's Fury has also been changed so that it now procs off taking any damage rather than critical damage. The duration is now only 5 seconds from 6 seconds. The stacking bonus can now only occur once every half second, and the total number of stacks is now 20 from 25, resulting in 150 weapon damage reduction upon reaching the 20 stacks. So this is still going to be a very, very strong set, but I like this change to the Warrior's Fury because it actually opens up running this set outside of maybe just CP PvP. In no CP, this isn't as good because people aren't critting as often, but I do like how they've changed this. It's going to be a lot harder for people to get huge amounts of Warrior stacks. They're going to have to be in combat a lot longer in order to get that big bonus, and then the maximum bonus is going to be a lot less than it used to be. And then the rest of the sets here, they're just kind of quality of life fixes, no major changes to them. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is all of the new sets and the changed sets in the upcoming Scalebreaker patch. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going over these patch notes in separate videos because there are so many changes with this Scalebreaker update. So look forward to more coming up throughout the rest of the day from me, guys. I'll be going over every little bit. Now, if you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content. We've got builds, commentaries, features from the community, commentaries and builds from them as well. And of course, we've got ESO news, patch notes, reviews, and all that good stuff. So be sure to stick around the channel for more ESO stuff. If you guys are interested in the top 5 PvP battles or sending in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Links and more information down in the description below. If you guys are interested in live stream stuff from me, you can always check out my Twitch. A link to my Twitch down in the description as well. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They give me better ping to my favorite games, and they're free to try for the first 14 days. No credit card to sign up. So if you guys want to give them a shot, no harm, no foul if it doesn't give you what you're looking for. And last but not least, if you guys really love the show and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this job, so thank you so much to everyone who's helped out. Thank you so much to everyone just for watching this video. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a great night, everyone.